end users bringing back, equipment back to their own facility, again, to, in my opinion, to reskill their own employees, bring back their own, I would say, engineers, technicians, operators, versus do you see them bring back, I would say, almost the capability, but work with a third party? It could be a co-packer or co-manufacturer, and sort of create relationships in which, they would manufacturing something off their site and then perhaps make the final assembly or whatever requires, or has some maybe proprietary information at their site. Like, how are you seeing maybe those two different splits play out with your end user?
Yes, I don't know what Adam's answer was, but we're seeing both, and I think it's smart. And by that I mean, I think manufacturers are testing various models, and we're going to find out which are more successful, and that's a good way, I think, in the real world to evaluate which models work the best. But I think I mentioned before, like the big pendulum swings of the past with strategy. Well, now it's much smaller variations, that we're going to. People are bringing business back, but maybe not all of it. Like you said, maybe they're going to bring back design and NPI work, but they're still going to manufacture not quite as far away, but somewhere far away. Or they'll bring in a third party that's going to do some of their process, but not all of their process. I think that's smart. I think that builds a more robust kind of infrastructure in your manufacturing and provides some ability to adjust when things go wrong. If you're using someone that's building part of your process and they fail, your whole system hasn't failed. It's just that one piece. And then if you're smart, you've built in an infrastructure where you've got some technology or personnel that can handle it, or you've got a backup that can handle that. Those are the things I think as an industry we didn't do very well in the past. It was sort of, I'm 100% vertical or I'm 100% outsourced, and then that's it. But now it's sort of like I'm more granular in my decision making. I'm going to build the parts that I can build well and automate the parts that make sense to automate, but maybe not everything. Maybe there's some parts that it's the last 10% and it provides less value, and let's have people do that part for a while, which again is more data driven and more, I think, intelligent than the broad strokes of the past. But we are seeing customers doing both is the bottom answer. Reshoring is, there is such a push for reshoring, and so many companies are doing it. We are seeing it, and even pre-COVID, we were. But I like that they're not, companies aren't just going by some old playbook. They're thinking and they're analyzing and they're putting together a strategy and then adjusting as you go. And I think that's healthy for any industry. Certainly, I think it's healthy for manufacturing.
And it's interesting that you mentioned, I guess, a little bit of both. I've always seen where it's, again, like either we outsource everything or we build everything in-house. So it's been, I would say, again, like my point was that I've seen a lot of problems with outsourcing certain components, at least from the automation, like the technical standpoint, right? And how that like dynamic plays out. Obviously, I was not involved in like the business decisions, but I certainly see the argument for outsourcing certain components. But now that you mentioned, maybe trying like small batches that you could outsource, or having maybe part of your machinery at a third party vendor would be, I think that's a very interesting option. Any thoughts, Dave, on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say lots of people, I think it's a good idea. I'd say lots of industries have done that for many years. So you look at automotive, right? So you've got automotive and you've got tier 1, 2, 3 suppliers. And then depending how close to Detroit you are, you've got tiers that live far below tier 1, 2, and 3 suppliers, or everyone just calls themselves tier 3 suppliers. And so I think that that's good. And kind of to Sean's point, I think it's good to understand what is important to you and your facility and your customers that you make yourself. Make the things that are important, and if they're unimportant, then don't feel compelled to go through the process of making those, right? So yes, so I would say that I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think that builds a good ecosystem, right? So I grew up in an area that did a fair amount of automotive, right? So there were lots of companies, this facility, these guys made alternators, right? And, this facility, these guys made batteries or whatever it is. And, that's just what they did. And they supplied to kind of everyone. And, Ford or Dodge or whomever, they're not going to be like, oh, yes, I have to carve out 50,000 square feet and put a line in to make the alternators I need to make for every car I go through the process of assembling. So, and by going down the process of doing that, you created a much better ecosystem in the area of having manufacturing companies. And because you did that, then you get the benefit of having more people who are exposed to and understand manufacturing. And at some point, maybe you get to go steal some of their best workers because you need someone for your facility, right? So in areas that have a lot of manufacturing, you can go steal, and, people can move and share ideas. I would say that that's very important. The downside of kind of you build everything in house is that, hey, we're X company, we do everything this way. If you want to get promoted, you have to have X years of experience at this company. And I have examples. I'm just not going to say the names of those companies in these examples. Like, oh, you've got 20 years of experience. Well, you've only been at X company for 6 months. You couldn't possibly be the quality manager, right? Like, this guy has 15 years of experience in this company. So there are positives. There are certainly positives of doing that.